privacy nightmares for Dell and for people who take quizzes on Facebook, and misconceptions about diversity in tech. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 474 for Tuesday, November 24th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Epson's new EcoTank printers. With Epson's line of SuperTank all-in-one printers, you can print thousands of documents without running out of ink. EcoTank is loaded and ready to print when you are. Visit epson.com/EcoTank to find out more. Welcome, I am Megan Morrone. Let's get to the tech news. Dude, are you thinking of getting a Dell? You might want to think again. Yesterday, computer maker Dell admitted to pre-installing software on certain computers that came with a self-signed root certificate that created a security hole that could allow attackers to access your personal data. This mini scandal looked a lot like the Lenovo Superfish disaster we reported back in the spring. Except unlike Lenovo, Dell admitted culpability right away and linked to a guide on how to remove the software. And then today, just as they provided a security update that removes the software automatically, Computer World reports on another dangerous certificate deployed by another Dell tool. The first certificate was issued by eDellRoot, and it was discovered by users and posted on Reddit. Dell says it wasn't used to advertise to you, as Lenovo's Superfish software was. Rather, it was intended to provide the system service tag to Dell Online support. And it was not intended to allow attackers to use cryptography to impersonate HTTPS-protected websites, but that is what it was able to do. The second certificate is called DSD Test Provider. It's installed by an application called Dell System Detect, or DSD. If you want to learn more about what Dell machines are affected and how you can help yourself and your friends and family who might be affected, you can listen to today's episode of Security Now with Steve Gibson and Leo. Over the weekend, the founders of Yelp and TripAdvisor tweeted that Google seemed to be favoring its own reviews over those of Yelp and TripAdvisor, even if your search included the word TripAdvisor. Mark Bergen over at Recode spoke with Google about the claim, and they say it is a bug, not a feature. In the past, Google has promised not to use their algorithmic power to take over the world in this particular fashion, and they say they are still keeping that promise. For now, a Google spokesperson told Recode that the results noted were due to a recent code push that they are working quickly to correct. Have you seen that cute little quiz that lets you tell your friends your most used words on Facebook? So people can see how much you love your life and your family and running and dancing and sunshine. Believe me, we already know that if we're friends on Facebook. According to the New York Times, more than 17 million people have taken the quiz. So if you're on Facebook at all, I'm guessing that you have seen someone else's list of most used words, even if you haven't taken the quiz yourself. The tool was created by a South Korean company called VonVon, and it requires you to log in to use it. If you read the terms of service, you'll see that VonVon will store your data for an unlimited amount of time on servers throughout the world, and they reserve the right to share that data with third parties. Now, the sudden outcry on Facebook and elsewhere about how this quiz is a privacy nightmare is a good example of how little most of us understand what Facebook and other legitimate sites are already doing with our data. On the list of items you make public to VonVon is your profile picture, but Facebook already makes that public, in case you didn't already know that. And the list of what Facebook can and does and has been doing with your data every second in order to sell ads to third parties is much lengthier than VonVon's paltry list. It's a trade-off you make to use Facebook. VonVon's chief executive, Jong-Hwa Kim, told VentureBeat that they are not trying to sell your data to third parties and that they have nothing to sell. And that is not so with Facebook. And speaking of privacy, Ars Technica says that Windows 10 November update was pulled for resetting privacy settings, but now it's back. Users sent reports to Microsoft that when they upgraded from the Windows 10 July release to the November update, 4 privacy settings would revert to their defaults. The official statement from Microsoft said that for the small amount of customers who were affected, they will restore their settings over the coming days, and they apologize for the inconvenience. Microsoft says they're working to resolve the issues as quickly as possible, and it will not impact future installs of the November update, which is available today. Coming up, salary secrets, unconscious bias, and other reasons tech companies are so white. But first, this episode is brought to you by Epson. Epson's revolutionary EcoTank line of printers for home and office introduce a new age in printing. The new EcoTank ET4550 wireless all-in-one printer does not use ink cartridges. Instead, it features an innovative refillable ink tank. It comes with enough ink to print up to 8,500 pages. That's equivalent to about 50 ink cartridge sets. You're loaded and ready to print for up to 2 years. Powered by Epson's leading-edge precision core technology, it delivers high-speed, vivid colors and laser-quality black text, plus auto two-sided printing, a 30-page auto document feeder, and easy wireless printing from tablets and smartphones. All EcoTank printers deliver an unbeatable combination of convenience and value with ultra-low-cost replacement ink bottles. Now you have the freedom to print without running out of ink. Visit Epson.com/EcoTank today to transform the way your home, office, or work group prints. For the best combination of ease and value, turn to the new Epson EcoTank printers. That's EPSON.com/EcoTank. And we thank Epson for their support. The diversity in tech conversation is often riddled with misconceptions. And one of the most egregious is that there are not enough qualified candidates of color to create a diverse workforce in tech companies. Last month, we told you the story of Leslie Miley, an engineer at Twitter, formerly at Google, who left the company in part because Twitter's senior VP of engineering told Miley, quote, "Diversity is important, but we won't lower the bar." Joining me today is TechCrunch reporter Megan Rose Dickey, who writes a regular column called Post-it, or People of Color in Tech, to highlight the up-and-coming tech superstars, as well as those who are already making waves in the industry. Welcome back, Megan.
Hey, thanks for having me. And just to clarify, so what was just shown on screen was not my work. That was peopleofcolorinTech.com, but that is what ultimately inspired my weekly series. And I let Ruth Messfun of People of Color in Tech know that she inspired me, and I want to give her full credit for really launching that idea. But I just thought that by putting it on TechCrunch, we can maybe reach more people and make people aware that the pipeline argument is basically bullshit. Like, there are enough qualified candidates in tech. So the point of People of Color in Tech is to really just bring more visibility to minorities in tech. And yeah.
So I mentioned Leslie Miley, and one of the things that was so surprising to him. I mean, he had been at Google and he had been at Twitter, and he was in a meeting, and and someone just said, "We don't want to lower the bar." And I mean, do you find that people are ignorant enough and are saying that just often, or do you think that's just was a specific case?
Unfortunately, I don't think that was a specific case. I've heard people say it. I've also heard Black people say it. So it's I don't know. In my opinion, I don't know if this is across the board, but there's also just this. God, why am I just totally blanking on the appropriate wording for this? But just internalized racism that even
unconscious bias.
Well, it's different, but but just this internalized racism that that even I have that I mean, growing up, I thought that I wasn't as smart as other people because I was Black. So that was just something that I had been kind of told through mainstream media, and that's kind of what I mean by internalized racism. So in a way, it's kind of like unconscious bias, I guess. But it just, to answer your question, I don't think that that's an isolated case. I think that we're just not really hearing about it. But unfortunately, that does seem to come up in this conversation around diversity.
So he left Twitter, and what is he doing now? Do you know?
So right now he's kind of taking a break. But I do know that in the next few months, I expect him to publicly announce what he's doing. But right now, he's just kind of keeping a low profile, but does have a plan.
So you also wrote about Mark Lucky, who also was at Twitter and also left. Why did he leave?
Right. He also left. So the tipping point for him wasn't even actually around diversity, though that did play a role in ultimately why he left. But the tipping point for him was that he just didn't really see a lot of room to grow. He mentioned that the leadership structure there is very horizontal, and so that and if he wanted to really move up, he'd have to switch departments, and that just wasn't what he was looking to do. And ultimately, he just has a passion for diversity in tech. He recently came out with a book called "Do You," and it's about the experience of, I believe, four different students at a historically Black college, and so he's looking to shed more light on diversity issues, and then that's when he eventually decided to launch Today in Black Twitter.
So the Do You, is that a novel or was that a nonfiction story?
It's a novel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Today in Black Twitter, what is that?
Okay, so that is a Twitter account and Medium account. Basically, what Mark Lucky did was kind of reverse engineered Twitter's API to figure out exactly what's going on in Black Twitter. And for those who don't know what Black Twitter is, I was also a little confused by it because I was wondering, okay, so because I'm Black and on Twitter, does that mean I am part of Black Twitter? The answer is no, definitely not, because I'm not actually tweeting enough about what Black Twitter is talking about. And Black Twitter talks about activism around race and social justice, and their tweets are people who like make up Black Twitter. Might be someone like DeRay McKesson, and he's always talking about social issues and race, and that makes up the bulk of his Twitter account. So basically, there are ended up saying that there are about like 200 people who he's identified as being part of Black Twitter. So on a daily basis, he aggregates what they're saying and kind of comes up with a summary of what's going on in Black Twitter. And that's what you'll see on Twitter. That's what you'll see on the Today in Black Twitter account, as well as on Medium.
So your columns highlight how many qualified candidates there are out there already, up and coming people. That's one of the misconceptions, is that there aren't enough candidates, or that you have to lower the bar, which isn't true. Another big problem is salaries, like the secrecy of salaries. And one person who was really trying to bring that to the forefront was Erica Baker, formerly of Google. Now she's at Slack. Tell us, give us, for those people who didn't follow the story, give us a little update of what happened to Erica at Google.
Right. So I think this was within the last year or so. She helped to aggregate some data around salaries at Google, and from what she collected, it seemed that there were some discrepancies in salaries for people doing the same jobs, but it was different based on race. But Google hasn't confirmed that is actually true, but basically she was fed up with those discrepancies, and now she's at Slack. And actually, that just reminds me of something that Buffer tweeted out today. They now have this tool where you can compare salaries and see what you would make if you worked at Buffer. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like jumping all over the place, but back to Erica. So after leaving Google, then she ended up at Slack, and she's been very outspoken about race and diversity in tech. And yeah, she's just doing a lot of really great work. And also, she's an engineer, so diversity is not her job. She's a build and release engineer at Slack.
So Slack is a company that's sort of aimed at younger people, started by younger people. Really, is that where you're seeing a lot of the real pushes in diversity in these kinds of companies like Slack?
Well, I guess first I didn't realize that. Is Slack aimed toward younger people? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Well, I think of people who are, it's a lot of GIFs and just a lot of people who are just like, they don't want to use email. They want to communicate faster. I guess it's headed by a lot of startups, which I think of as younger people. But
right. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. Which is an issue with diversity. But anyway, age diversity. But yeah, so were you talking about Slack's diversity report? Is that what you were referencing earlier?
Well, no, I don't actually know anything about their diversity report. What did Slack's diversity report say?
One of the most interesting stats was that, this came out a few months ago. I believe it was at least 7%. Its engineering team was 7% African American, which is just the highest that we've seen in any tech company. Usually, like in your Apples and Googles and Facebooks, those numbers, that's usually around like 2 or 3% top. So it was just really nice to see a relatively high percentage of Black people in engineering at Slack.
So what you're saying is it does nothing to do with it, that there are lots of companies started by younger people that are really white and have their own problems with diversity. It really has nothing to do with the fact that Slack is aimed at young people?
Honestly, it's not really something I've thought about too much. So you're wondering if because Slack is a younger company that makes them better at diversity, or?
Yeah, and I as I'm saying it, I'm realizing it's not true, because I know there's a lot of problems with lots of young startups that come, from and are basically started by 5 white guys who came from the same fraternity.
Right.
And so I'm answering my own question, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think it has much to do with that. I know. So Erica has spoken very highly of Slack CEO Stuart Butterfield. Maybe it has something to do with him. I've actually never spoken to the guy, so I'm not really sure what his personal philosophy is on diversity and inclusion. But whatever it is, it seems to be making employees happy, and the numbers are a lot better than any other company that's released its diversity report.
So a lot of this, a lot of the problems happen in the hiring process. You profiled Stephanie Lamkin from Blendor. They're a company that wants to highlight this problem. What is Blendor?
So Blendor, it's a mobile job matching app. It's been compared to Tinder, but basically it tries to mitigate the bias in the hiring process. So it's kind of like a blind. Now I'm just using the Tinder example, but it's kind of like a blind date in a way. Like you don't actually see. You don't see the race or ethnicity of the person, and I believe Stephanie said at the Kapor Center for Social Impact, they had an event a couple of weeks ago, and I believe Stephanie said at that point that they also they removed where that person went to school, because because there's also some preferences that if someone went to Stanford versus a state college, then or the person who went to the state college doesn't have as good of a chance as a person who went to Stanford. So removing the university, the name of the university, and also the race and gender.
Right. That's that argument that if, people are saying, like, I want someone that worked at Google and went to Stanford. And so already they're already building in the bias. Yes, that was already right. So another person that was really interesting, you covered Deldeep Medina. She started Avion Ventures. Can you tell us about Avion Ventures?
Yeah, so Avion Ventures, it's basically an accelerator that is focused specifically on Latina entrepreneurs, and it's kind of this mentoring program for Latina entrepreneurs. I think it's been around for a couple of years now, and that's what she's doing full time. I actually ran into her a couple of hours ago just walking up 24th Street in San Francisco. But anyway, so yeah, it's exciting some of the work that she's doing, and we were actually on a panel discussion together a couple of months ago at a conference called Tech Inclusion, and she was talking about kind of collaborating with other diverse accelerators in order to just kind of uplift all diverse people in tech. Because right now there are a lot of different initiatives going on, and I guess the fear is that people will kind of prioritize one over the other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I want one diverse person. I can get a white woman and call it a day,
Right. Right.
Well, thank you so much for covering all of this. Thank you for answering all of my questions, helping me answer my own questions. Megan Rose Dickey is a reporter at TechCrunch. She is at Megan Rose Dickey on Twitter. And I look forward to all your work, your new podcast and your new profiles of the more upcoming people of color. So thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
You too.
And finally tonight, you can now watch Vines right on your wrist because life is short. And if you're not spending it watching 6-second looping videos on your Apple Watch, then you are not living, people. The Vine app for the Apple Watch was released today. And in addition to letting you watch videos, you can also add complications to certain watch faces that let you keep track of how many times people watch your videos. The Vine app is free on the iPhone. It now includes a way to search for Vines of similar content. The app is also free on the Apple Watch since Apple has yet to figure out how to charge you for apps on your wrist. And that is it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. Thanks to Michael Manley for tweeting about how easy it is to watch our shows live on Apple TV with the new Twit apps. I am Megan Morrone on Twitter, so you can feel free to tweet me your feedback or direct message me too if you don't want to be public. You can also subscribe to this show at twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at tn2@twit.tv and watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.